Operation Pluto, the Isle of Wight's unique and remarkable contribution to the Second World War. The lifeblood of an army is oil. But how was enough oil to be delivered to France for the invasion of 1944? The first stage in addressing this problem was the construction of an oil network, ending at Southampton and continuing to the Isle of Wight.
The pipeline came across from Southampton, across the channel under Operation Solo, and then from there across the island to Hungerberry Copse under Operation Toto, and there was a 620,000-gallon tank hidden by camouflage.
The oil came onto the island at Thorness Bay. A local farmer remembers these lines being laid.
These pipes come from the mainland at Leap. They came across on a boat. It was like a huge tug and had a big cable reel on the front. And on the end of the pipe, they kept going to and fro on the field, and they pulled the pipes in. They drew the pipes across, they built the pits and put the pipes along. There's two more comes in at the end. They came along to here, they built the pits, and there's the pipes going, but starting to go across the island. It goes across here, right across, up over the Danes, out to Shanklin.
This 30-mile pipeline was laid in a matter of days and ended in the steep-sided gorge, Shanklin Chine.
It came down the Chine. We're the only place where there's still 65 yards of the pipe remaining. There were pumping houses along the esplanade, which were camouflaged and hidden. And then you went into these bombed-out ruins of hotels, or the actual hotels, and the doors opened, and there were enormous concrete mixers inside. Amazing piece of camouflage, and the enemy never found out.
We actually got involved with Pluto, if you like, when I actually found some of the remaining pieces that they didn't recover after the war.
Factories in England had been busy designing and manufacturing the pipelines that would be laid to France. The most successful design was based on an undersea electric cable and was called the Hayes. Soon, secret locations became full of 750-yard lengths of this extraordinarily flexible pipeline.
It's amazing, really. I mean, obviously this has gone a little bit rusty now, but when we cut it, it was bright, shiny metal. There's the lead centre, and there's two bands of counter-rotating flexible steel tape which give it the flexibility here, and then you've got the armouring on the outside, and then a sort of bitumen type sort of natural fibre covering. But you can see the makeup of the armoured wire there, and the covering there, and the lead pipe in the centre.
Whilst the pipelines were being stockpiled, teams of island builders were appointed to construct and disguise the pumping stations. Installations were built in hotels at Shanklin, the old granite fort at Sandown, and at Brown's Golf Course.
Well, that would be in the summer of 1943. One of the installations were built inside the glass enclosure there, and it was one of the pump installations for the Pluto pipeline.
This clever camouflage meant that few seafront buildings were innocent. The Brown's Golf Course installation was conveniently adjacent to the headquarters of Operation Pluto, hidden beneath the cellars of the Sandown Grand Hotel.
Underneath the cellars there was a trap door, and you went underneath there and you can see where they still had some gauges still there, and bolts coming out the floor where things were stacked, and there was loads of old munitions which we had to get back into the army, which we found.
When we came here on the first morning of our employment, we were all marshalled into the ballroom of the hotel, and we were given a lecture on secrecy. It's still got the 1930s decor. It hasn't altered at all.
Pluto was ready. But how was 65 miles of pipeline to be laid overnight from England to France?
You'll see really what looks like a gigantic cotton reel, which the pipe was wound round, and then as it rolled out as it went across the channel. Because the first cable, believe it or not, took only 10 hours to lay.
These 1,600-ton floating drums, 30 feet in diameter and 90 feet in length, had to be towed across the channel by two of our strongest tugs, with the pipeline unwinding and sinking behind them. In all, 20 Plutos were laid in this way to Europe. The pipelines were then extended behind the front line until 1 million gallons of oil a day were flowing from the Mersey to the Rhine. Captain Maurice Lickens was one of the officers in charge of the European network.
I think we all understood the importance of it, although at the time I don't think one realised quite how vital petrol supplies were going to be and how jolly useful and how essential we were for the rapidly advancing mechanised and armoured force, which would guzzle petrol like it was going out of fashion. And we had lots of leaks from people who thought their need to our petrol was greater than ours. In one notorious incident, the worst, and perhaps I'm not sure it's right or wrong to highlight it, but there was once along the canal, my memory is somewhere along the Herentals sector in Belgium, where some bright boys had tapped the line underneath and led a branch line off to along the side of the canal to an outbuildings, old outbuildings, ex-old farm buildings, I believe, and were operating a jerry can filling point.
Following victory, Pluto was salvaged and supplied 50,000 British homes with new plumbing. The continental pipelines were handed over to the countries that they ran through.
In one sector, I recall, I had the task of logging, totaling, adding up what we were handing over. And it was ginormous. And that included the pumps as well.
For many of the pumps across Europe, new peacetime roles were found, but a few were returned to Britain to be stored by the Imperial War Museum, along with several remains of the pipelines themselves, for future generations to learn from.
It was a major project and very cleverly done, really. I mean, how else would they have got the fuel over there in quick time?
My knowledge of petrol was minimal. I mean, yes, I could drive up to a petrol station and say, put 10 in, please, or something. But yeah, vaguely I knew it came from under the ground or under the sea or somewhere or another. But how the hell we got it and why we got it and how people risked their lives and all the operation that went in, it was lost on me until I sort of stood in it.
It was only the locals that knew, and the local farmer that went through. And it went through so quick, it didn't take long, you know, in a week they were gone out of sight.
Message from Sir Winston Churchill, June 1944. Operation Pluto was a remarkable feat of British engineering, distinguished in its originality, pursued with tenacity, and crowned by complete success. These are true characteristics of a virile nation in a technological age. It's amazing, really, over 50 years ago, what Operation Pluto achieved.